If you guys can believe it, it has been over 3 years since I took delivery of this 2022 Ioniq 5 SEL all-wheel drive. For those of you who watch the channel regularly, then you know I just took delivery of a 2025 Ioniq 5 limited all-wheel drive from Stevenson Hyundai of Frederick out in the Denver area in Colorado. And that's going to be the latest car seen here on the Ioniq Guy. But what that means is that we're going to be bidding farewell to this, the car that started it all, the 2022 Ioniq 5. It's a little bittersweet, but it's time to move forward with the new refreshed version of the Ioniq 5 to cover ownership and things that happen with that car. So if you are maybe in the market for a used Ioniq 5 or just interested in what 3 years of ownership have been like, then stay tuned. Hey everyone, it's the Ioniq Guy. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. My name's Corbin. I cover all things Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, EV related. So yeah, the time has come to bid farewell to this car. I'm probably going to hang on to it for another month or so before I eventually sell it. I'm going to do some comparative testing with the new Ioniq 5 for some future videos on the channel. So if you're between buying a used Ioniq 5 or a brand new 2025 Ioniq 5, stay tuned because those videos might be relevant to you. But yeah, this is my 2022 Ioniq 5 SEL all-wheel drive. This exterior color is digital teal, same as my new 2025. In general, the paint still looks really good. In terms of just general exterior quality, I'm not seeing anything specific to what Hyundai gave me here. Most of the issues on the exterior are from my own fault. Door dings, some scuffs, some curb rash on one of the wheels. There is, however, one issue on the rear bumper that I do think is a paint defect from factory. There is a little tiny spot where there is some bubbling of the paint, meaning there is rust taking place underneath it. So that is definitely a paint defect, but it's very small. With all the road salt on the car, you can't even really tell that it's there. It doesn't appear that it's gotten any worse over the last year or so, so it might not be that big of an issue long term, but nonetheless, it still exists. I know some people who bought the 2022 through 2024 Limited, which has the glossy black trim around the car. They've had issues with it peeling off. This does have matte black finish on the exterior parts, so that hasn't been an issue with me with the SEL. Honestly, kind of crazy. This is the original windshield for the car. I haven't had to replace it. The car is still riding on the original tires. There's about 37,000 miles on it, but when I did go down to Apex, North Carolina for the Ioniq Charging Network launch event, I did end up getting a flat tire. Now, after the fact, I did hear from somebody who was there early in the morning that they had a crew going through the parking lot there with a magnetic kind of sweeper to pick up possibly nails or metal pieces that were on the ground. And I think I might have just gotten unlucky and hit one of them. Once you use that inflation kit too, the tire is toast. They can't patch it or anything. I mean, they say they can't patch it. Whether that's true or not, I don't really know. But yeah, so this does have one new tire on it. I know that's kind of bad practice, but I'm getting rid of it in the next few weeks, so I didn't really want to spend another $300 on top of that single $300 tire just to get it back to Boston. One issue that I did experience a little over a year ago was the front radar sensor failed, and that did require replacement. Luckily, that was under warranty, so that didn't end up costing me anything out of pocket. So you'll probably notice that I have aftermarket badging on the car. These are from Best EV Mod. Now, these have been on my car for, I believe, over 2 years now. And you can see they still look fantastic. I'm not seeing any fading or anything. For those of you who did buy 2023 and 2024 Ioniq 5s here in the US, you're probably saying to yourself, why does Corbin have different lighting in the back versus my 23 or 24? That is because the 2022 Ioniq 5 really was a well thought out package, in my opinion. You do get the fancy top trim lighting that's currently reserved only for the limited trim in the United States, that being the light pipe across the bottom there, all the pixelation in the center section. The reverse lights are these 4 pixels right there. The reverse lights aren't located down there in the bumper like in the current SELs. So that was a bit of a bummer when they changed that for the 2023 model year. So back in 2022, I did install this Torque Lift Central Eco Hitch. This thing has been rock solid, no issues with that whatsoever. It is stainless steel build. You might be wondering, why is there another outlet located in your trailer hitch? Well, that is just a little accessory that I 3D print and sell in my store at ioniqguy.com. it does fit pretty well a regular household outlet. So if you kind of want to trick some people into thinking they can get some electricity out of there, you can check those out on my website. You'll also notice that my car does have a rear windshield wiper. This is a prototype Gecko wiper that is going to be going on sale pretty soon. It's currently in the manufacturing process, but you might remember a few months ago I talked about that on my channel. Basically, it's held in place with a suction cup, and then there's a magnet on the other side of the window that if the suction cup were to fail, the magnet would continue to hold it in place. Now, for those of you who've been longtime followers of the channel, then you know that I did have issues with charging at 11 amps. I will leave a link in the description to the video where I ended up tearing the entire charge port apart. I took all the pins out of the J1772 port, reseated them, and I haven't had any issues charging at 11 amps since doing that. Since I did that, there has been a technical service bulletin that will dynamically adjust your level 2 charging rate to prevent the port from overheating. That's not the best fix in the world, but it is a fix. And I know a lot of people complain about the sensitivity of this close button. It's kind of mushy. That has been fixed for the 2025 Ioniq 5, luckily. Even though she's covered in road grime, I still think she looks beautiful. I have had zero issues with the pop-out door handles over the last 3 years. These things are still operating rock solidly. Same thing goes with the auto-folding rear view mirrors, but I will say there were a few instances where they did get frozen in place, but that could happen to any car that has folding mirrors. So that's kind of it for exterior in terms of how it's held up. Some other things related to servicing this car. I am being bad. I have not done anything with the low conductivity coolant loop here. It hasn't been top priority for me. I might try and get it done before I sell the car. I did look more into it though, because I really haven't had a whole lot of good information. I know some people have done it themselves, but this is not a service you should be doing yourself. It requires specialty equipment, a vacuum pump to pull the coolant out of the coolant lines. You don't have to remove the bumper, contrary to what was previously thought. I did download the service manual from Hyundai's Techline website. They don't show you removing the bumper. You have to remove some of the plastic shrouding from under the car, but that's it. But you need a specialty tool. The Hyundai dealerships, I think, have to buy it for like $1,500 or something, and I don't think most of them even have it at this point. I feel like they're still very confused about this for some reason. But I did reach out to Bob, the electric principal, on YouTube because he works at Crossroads Hyundai out in Colorado. He talked to his service center, and they said to do that service, $293.32 plus tax. He was very specific. And I guess the service tech said that he's a fan of the Ioniq guy, and he said you can take that to the bank. And I've seen some quotes online around that area, sub $500. I've seen some astronomical quotes well over $1,000. So it's been all over the place. It seems like it should be a pretty cheap, inexpensive service though. So yeah, I don't really have a great answer for you other than $300 sounds about right. Don't try to do it yourself. Definitely don't pay over $1,000 for that service. That's just ridiculous highway robbery. Something I just learned the other day is if you were questioning whether your car has a heat pump or not for cabin heating and cooling, look at this sticker under your hood. If it says 900, then you have a heat pump for heating and cooling your cabin. If it says, I believe, 725, then that means you do not have a heat pump for cooling your cabin. So if you're ever wondering, check this little sticker located on the underside of the hood. Another thing I experienced since my last 2-year review is I did replace the 12-volt battery. It did die, gave me all sorts of error codes and everything. So I ended up replacing it with an AGM battery, which is not what is specified by Hyundai. They want you to put in a standard lead acid battery, which aren't as good at deep cycling. AGM batteries are much better for that. This was like $110. I got it on Amazon. I will have a link in the description. It's worked perfectly since last April. I've had zero issues. It's been sitting out in the cold a lot, so I'm pretty happy with it. I did also have an issue last month. I went to check my cabin air filter located under here, and a mouse was nesting in there. I actually didn't find the mice, but I found all the material that they were nesting with. So I cleaned that out. Hopefully that's not an issue going forward. I didn't really notice any restricted airflow in the cabin or any smells or anything, so it might not have been there for too long. But be sure to check your cabin air filters every once in a while, especially during the winter time where mice are looking for places to hide and stay warm. Now, something I know that a lot of you are going to be really interested in is what has my long-term efficiency been with this car? Well, let me show you. If I scroll down, you'll see over the last 10,000 miles, 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour. That did get reset when the 12-volt battery died, unfortunately. It doesn't remember these accumulated info screens when that does happen. So that's a bummer. But I do have a ton of photos of what it was before the battery died, and it was exactly 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. So it's definitely safe to say that 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour over various seasons, over 3 years, is what this car is going to average, at least here in New England in our climate. Now, if you were to extrapolate that number using the usable battery capacity of about 74 kilowatt hours, you will see that you have a total estimated range of about 236.8 miles. Now, when I bought this car, it was rated for, I believe, 255. They did increase it for the 2023 model year. But either way, this is kind of what you can expect in real world conditions, doing a lot of highway driving. Back when I was working full time, I was doing mostly highway commuting, about 30 miles round trip every day at 75 to 80 miles per hour. So it's kind of based on those higher speeds. And even now that I live in Boston, most of the miles going on this car are going back and forth from Connecticut to Boston on the Mass Pike, so doing 75 plus miles per hour. So you can see there, my total mileage is 36,542. So when I purchased my Ioniq 5, it came with the standard 2 years of unlimited 30-minute charging sessions at Electrify America. But because I was an original reservation holder for the Ioniq 5, they did give me a 3rd year free of charge. Now, if I filter by Ioniq 5 charging plan, you can see I've saved $742 in DC fast charging over 34 sessions, 1.6 megawatt hours of energy put into the car's battery. So that is pretty cool. I still think it's a good thing that it is ending for the 2025 model year. I mean, it definitely played into my decision. I was planning on doing a lot of charging at Electrify America when I bought the car, but I quickly realized that it wasn't worth the time and hassle of sitting at a charger for 30 minutes every few days just to save a few bucks. My time is much more useful elsewhere, so I decided to stop doing that pretty quickly after I got the car. But nonetheless, it's been nice on road trips. Now, in terms of how the cabin has held together in the last 3 years, I would say overall quite good. You can see down here in the cup holders, there's pretty standard wear and tear from putting your cup in and out all the time. I did get some door damage here when I did accidentally roll down the window with some of my camera mounting attached to it still, and that put a hole in the pleather up there. There was also some damage to this material here, which is also my fault from putting double-sided tape for an accessory on and then pulling it off. That ended up really screwing it up, which was pretty unfortunate, but my own doing. This material here has also held up quite well. You can see it does have some scuffing going on there from my foot hitting it when I get in and out of the car, but it's not torn or anything, and if I did spend some time washing it, it would probably come out. The steel plate behind this piece of fabric where you can stick magnets has also held up pretty well considering how much prototyping for my accessories I have done on it and dragging my glasses across it and everything. You can see it is a little dirty, but you could probably get that out. The screen still looks basically as good as the day I got it. There's no scratches or anything, so the material is held up quite well. No complaints there. Now, for me, an ongoing issue has been this door and the rattle within it. I haven't been able to get it to go away. I took the door panel apart at one point and still wasn't able to determine what was going on. It usually happens when I have music playing with a lot of bass, and if I grab it and pull it towards me, I'm not sure what it's doing, but it does kind of stop it from doing that for a while, but it seems to always eventually come back. The seats have also held up really well over 3 years. I'm very impressed. I don't have passengers in the car a ton, but I'm a big dude, and my driver's seat still looks very good. There's a little bit of dye transfer from my black or blue jeans that I wear, but other than that, The material still looks pretty good. There's like a little bit of cracking starting right there, but it's nothing that's actually like breaking through. You can see my Liner X floor mats are doing a good job of collecting all that slush and snow and salt and everything and keeping it off the carpet in here. Highly recommend Liner X. They make great mats and they fit terrifically. Now getting in the back seat, really no damage back here at all. Everything back here is looking as good as the day I got it. It's not very often that I have rear seat passengers, so that's probably part of the reason. I'm sure if you got kids back here all the time, I'm sure they're poking and prodding and pulling at things, but there's really been no issues back here. Everything looks really good still. I have gotten some schmutz on the headliner, and I was able to wash it out, thank God, because it was from some tires, so it was very dark on this light color. But it did come out. The rear seat legroom in this car really still blows my mind. The fact that me at 6'2" can sit directly behind myself and still have an inch or two of knee room is just so impressive. It's a testament to just how well thought out this car was with its 3-meter wheelbase, longer than the Hyundai Palisade. Now here in the cargo area, things are still really good. I have not had the dreaded hatch rattle that a lot of owners complain about. There's been multiple technical service bulletins released to it. They now give you new versions of these door guides that they install that should help. And then they take a big old mallet with a hammer and a screwdriver and bash that, which is supposed to tighten it up or something. I've heard from a lot of people that the issue still happens even after all that. So it unfortunately doesn't sound like they've completely fixed the problem, but it seems like they haven't given up. They keep releasing new versions of the fix. So I guess that's something. Now, talking about one of the most major issues with the car related to the ICCU that has continued to plague people with failures, I have not experienced it. I'm sure at some point in the future, the likelihood of me having it with this car is probably pretty high. But it does kind of give me hope that the software updates and recalls they've done over the last 2 years have actually fixed the problem, or at least prevented it from happening. The radar sensor was really the only hardware failure that I've experienced in 3 years. And doing some research online, it sounds like that was just a bad component within Hyundai. I've seen it failing on a bunch of other cars in the lineup, so it's not specific to the Ioniq 5. That's just a Hyundai problem. Let's kind of talk about, though, how much this car has improved since I first got it. So it's kind of crazy to think that back in 2022 when I bought this, there was no route planning with charging stops in the car. So if I wanted to go on a road trip, I literally had to plan every charging stop myself ahead of time. Really sucked. As it stands today, it has gotten a lot better. I've now used it to go to Apex, North Carolina for the Ioniq launch, and I did utilize it for part of my road trip back from Colorado to Boston, just testing out the new version in the new car. I know it's a new operating system, but it's still kind of representative of how it works now, and it's not too bad. Looking back, another thing that's hard to believe is this car could not precondition the battery for DC fast charging. So when you showed up to a DC fast charger with a cold battery, it would take at least 30 minutes, usually 35 minutes to go 10 to 80%. But later that year, they did add battery conditioning to these cars, to the 2022. Now, there's a couple things I need to mention that you need to be aware of. If you're looking at buying a 2022 rear-wheel drive Ioniq 5, do so only if you live somewhere where it's warm or you're not going to do any DC fast charging, because that car cannot battery condition to this day, and it never will. That is never going to be an option on that car. You're always going to have a battery that is going to be at ambient temperature. And that is strictly because it does not have the heater in the car for the battery heating. So it's just physically not capable of doing so. Now, if you're looking at potentially buying a used 2022 all-wheel drive Ioniq 5, there's also another issue you need to be aware of, and that is the fact that when they did release that battery conditioning software update, there was a whole problem where there was this weird week where one software update came out, another came out, and there was a whole problem that if the dealer installed the second one before installing the battery conditioning update, they would try to install the battery conditioning update after the fact, and it wouldn't take. And still to this day, I'm hearing from people buying used 2022s that still show in their system settings winter mode and not battery conditioning mode. They did remove that winter mode button and replaced it with battery conditioning. And for those people, they're almost kind of screwed. I've reached out to Hyundai Engineering on this in the past, and they did try to help out those owners. That person that I talked to retired, and I could no longer contact them. I tried to reply to the people who were on his automated message telling who to forward those emails onto, and it was radio silence from them. So I don't know what the problem is. I've given out instructions on what he told me to tell the dealerships, and most of the time the dealerships don't want to help because it's some random email from somebody they don't know, so they kind of just poo-poo that. So just bear in mind, if you're shopping, check that screen. If you don't have a battery conditioning button, I personally would probably move on and just try to find one that does have that button, because I don't think the dealers can really do much to help you at this point. And I'm still going to continue to try and advocate for you guys to be able to get that added to your 2022, because the hardware is there. It's capable of warming the battery. It's just not activated in the software. One of the bigger changes that came with the 2022 Ioniq 5 was in how the brake lights illuminate. So when I first got this car, when you drove it in I-pedal, which is the one pedal driving, so basically you're just using the accelerator to modulate your speed, the brake lights would almost never come on. You could be decelerating from 60 to 30 miles per hour in, say, 4 or 5 seconds, and the brake lights would not come on. It turned into this whole thing online, and Hyundai ended up giving a software update, which then changed the operation of the brake lights. Unfortunately, in my opinion, they went too far in the other direction, and now they are far too sensitive. And if you're even going down a slight decline, not even picking up any speed, the brake lights come on. It's extremely annoying. It annoys everybody on the road. I really wish they would kind of go back in the opposite direction now and make them a little less sensitive. But I'm going to do some testing with the 2025 versus this to see if they did kind of change it and tweak it a little bit. Another groundbreaking feature that this car didn't have when it first went on sale: sounds of nature and sports scores. I kind of joke about it, but I know some people like the sounds of nature. Basically, it's just a few channels in here that you can scroll through various sounds of nature or like cityscapes if you don't feel like listening to the radio or something. The car did also gain Hyundai Pay, which will allow you to pay for parking, and then eventually in the future it should support plug-in charge so that you don't have to use an app or a credit card at a charging station. You'll just plug in and the car will communicate with the station and pay for you. Unfortunately, to this day, still have not received wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. I really doubt that it's ever going to come. I know people have complained about it. I just don't see it coming. Another thing that I've complained about greatly is the fact that the new Ioniq 5 and EV9 and Kona Electric and all the new future cars, they have a manual battery conditioning button. And I've been begging Hyundai to add that as a feature here so that you can use Apple CarPlay, you can use Google Maps for your navigation, and then when you're 45 minutes to an hour out from the charging station, just press the button, battery conditioning activates. You don't have to rely on the built-in navigation, even though I do think it's improved. I think it's just a nice option to have. Something I think that really sucks, though, is the fact that for the 2024 Ioniq 5, Hyundai implemented what's called BlueLink Plus, which is basically a more basic version of BlueLink that those owners will have indefinitely, not have to pay any monthly fee for, whereas the 22 and 2023s do not get that. So just the other day, my BlueLink subscription ended, and that's it. I don't get BlueLink Plus, even though it's still the same car as a 2024. I think that's really annoying and kind of crappy on Hyundai's part to say, oh, only 2024 Ioniq 5 owners are going to get this, but you 2022 and 23 owners, screw off. Overall, I'm just so thrilled with life with this car. Charging monster. This thing charges so fast. Oddly enough, it charges faster than the brand new 2025 Ioniq 5. For whatever reason, the NAX port now has slowed the charging enough that it takes 20 minutes to go 10 to 80% versus this will do 18 minutes all day, every day. So those of you who plan on keeping your 22 through 24s, you still got bragging rights in terms of charging speed. Now, for those of you who watch my channel because of 2022 through 2024 Ioniq 5 content, I really hope you will stay because I'm not deserting you. I still have my 2024 Ioniq 6, which has all the same software, all the same systems as this car. It's basically just a sedan version of it. So I'm planning on continuing coverage of this basic system into the future. And who knows, maybe a few years from now when these things are dirt cheap, I'll consider buying a high mileage used one, let somebody in my family drive it or whatever, just to kind of start following what they're like later on in their life. There were some things I didn't talk about in this video for brevity's sake, but I did reach out to my communities and ask them if there were any burning questions that they wanted answered. So we'll start with the first one, and that is tire tread depth. So after 35,000 miles, it's a little bit less than the odometer because I did switch out to winter tires last winter when I was testing Michelin X-Ice versus the Blizzaks. So it's about 35,000 miles and they're pretty much shot. They're down to 4/32 of an inch. I was really bad about rotating them, but the tread depth seems pretty similar around the 3 remaining original tires. I did replace that one down in Apex, North Carolina when I got that flat at the Ioniq launch event. The dealership that I've talked to about selling the car to said that, yeah, they're going to replace the tires. They can't sell a car with 4/32 of an inch of tread depth left. Once your tires get down that low, you really start to notice a lack of traction, especially hydroplaning in the rain, and then if there's any amount of snow, forget about it. One of the things I forgot to mention is Hyundai did change the operation of the Gessometer, which tells you an estimated range value. It used to be that it was, I believe, 2 weeks of driving data was utilized to create that number. Then they changed it, I think about 9-10 months ago, to only utilize the previous week of driving data. So it's going to be much more kind of relevant to your recent trips versus an average of 2 weeks worth of driving, which would really give you probably an inflated range value. And I'm still seeing this today with a lot of people saying, I just got these software updates from last year and my range estimate went from 350 miles per charge at 100% down to 280. Yeah, because it's much more accurate. You were probably not getting anywhere close to 350 miles of range. And as much as people don't like seeing a smaller number, I'd rather have a more accurate number than a bigger number that's not accurate. So I think that was a really welcome change. Something I forgot to mention earlier in regard to just kind of general issues with the car, and it's not really something that can be remedied too easily, and that is the rear motor whine. I've had many people comment on it that have ridden in the car with me. It's this really high frequency motor noise at highway speed. It can be really annoying at times. I will say I have personally become pretty immune to it, but new people that get in the car that might not have heard something like that before, it definitely stands out to them. I will say the 2025 Ioniq 5, I have not noticed it, and I spent 36 hours in the car, and I was listening for it because they claimed that they did add some more sound deadening to the rear motor, and I think they definitely solved that problem. The last question, would I rather fight one Ioniq 5 sized duck or 100 duck-sized Ioniq 5s? I think I could take the 100 duck-sized Ioniq 5s pretty easily. I'm a big dude. So those are some of the questions that people ask. Some of them I want to save for dedicated videos, so stay tuned for those in the future. So with that, I think that's going to do it for this 3-year review of the 2022 Ioniq 5 SEL all-wheel drive. I hope you guys enjoyed the 3 years of ownership with this car and talking about what life has been like to own this brand new EV to the US market. I've had a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys watching me, helping me grow this channel into what it's become today. Couldn't have done it without you and your continued viewership. If you guys do appreciate these videos, consider purchasing some of my accessories from my store at ioniqguy.com, or if you're outside of the US, via my Etsy shop. I'm trying to kind of steer clear of sponsored content into the future, and with these accessories, I'm able to kind of make a little bit of extra money to put towards doing things without getting involved with the companies themselves. Make sure you stay tuned for a lot more coverage on the 2025 Ioniq 5, including a full comparison versus the the 2022. Consider becoming a channel member for as little as 99 cents per month. For $3 per month, you can get early access to all of my videos before everybody else. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.